I have come here to chew ass and kick bubblegum, and I'm all out of ass. I'm John Renton with the retro review of They Live, directed by John Carpenter, who did The Thing, the second Thing, actually, because then we had The Thing from Another World back in the 50s, and then John Carpenter's Thing, Gross, as well as Ghosts of Mars and other projects, including one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Okay, yeah, anyway, Halloween. Yeah, he did Halloween. So, Roddy Piper, Roddy the Piper, as the ring announcer called him for his first match. He basically had his best goddamn role here, and along with Keith David, created one of the most iconic fight scenes, at least of 80s movies filmography. And pretty much from there, this has basically become a cult classic about basically some kind of race, interdimensional race, taking over society and basically obey, consume, marry, reproduce, and they just basically consumerism us to death. And it's a social commentary on Reaganism. And John Carpenter basically said that until some hate groups decided to twist it to fit their own hateful narratives. And John Carpenter basically had to say a number of years ago, no, that's bullshit. But this is based on the short story by Ray Nelson. You ain't got to call him Ray, you ain't got to call him Nelson, you just have to call him Ray Nelson. So, yes, Roddy Piper. Honest to God, somebody that I sorely miss. One of the most creative, influential wrestlers. Tremendous promo, tremendous worker. It's a real shame that this actually was the best role that he ever did. He did a number of movies after this, but good God, hell comes to Frogtown. Yeah. But that being said, They Live has a lot of good ideas. Some are executed well. This has a pulpy, actiony, sci-fi, horror feel about it. And does have some good stuff. I will admit there are a few inconsistencies or a few ideas that are half-baked, a few pacing issues, a few character choices that make me think, I don't think anybody really understood how to do this revolution. You say one revolution, but then you have brains, basically, that are piles of shit. So, Keith David, this is one of his best roles as well. And to think, he's still acting to this very day as recently as Nope, which actually he had a pretty good role in that. It was really short, but pretty memorable. And, yeah, Roddy Piper, could hang his hat on this being a really memorable role. It's a better role than Hulk Hogan ever had in any film that he did. And he did quite a few films. None of them were any fucking good, because Piper could actually act and ad-lib and do good stuff. So, a $4 million budget was a lot. That's $10.6 million in today's money. $4.8 million opening, so it was guaranteed to be a success. And that's about $12.8 million in today's money. $13.4 million gross. $35.7 million in today's money. Rumor has it, as Adele once said, that there could be a possible sequel. I think that's, given what happens to Piper's character, I guess it's understandable he wouldn't need to be in that, but it feels kind of dickish to do it now, when you could have found some way to work around it, but nevertheless. Basically, yeah, there's a creativity of having particular sunglasses because they found Corey Hart's stash. And if you get that reference, you love deep cut songs like I do. Where basically these sunglasses show weird skeletal alien type creatures that mask as humans or masquerade as humans. And yeah, from there we just have an action sci-fi movie that it took longer to get going than I remember. And I think that actually ends up hurting it because even though it does kick things into gear about 30 minutes in, then it slows down, then it just has one particular character where it's obvious they're going to betray everybody at the end. That's Holly, played by Meg Foster, who has beautiful blue eyes, I do want to say. And, yeah, outside of Piper and Keith David, there are a few people you might recognize, but it's not a, mega star-packed cast. And, yeah, you have Piper as a drifter. The alley fight took 3 weeks. And, yeah, the world's basically in turmoil, and just study up on the Reagan policies and understand just how a bunch of that shit really did have a snowball effect on that. Regardless of how you feel politically, it's indisputable. You cannot end up fighting against that. You could, but you'd be wrong. So, he ends up, Piper's only ever referred to in the credits as Nada. The man with no name, basically. He meets Keith David's Frank. Well, just trying to find work. He's on a construction site. The golden rule: he who has the gold controls. He who has the gold makes the rules. And then there's some kind of signal basically sent out by these aliens somewhere, these creatures, that is controlling people. And there's a ragtag group of militia, or rather resistors, that are trying to stop it. So there is a pastor that can't see because he did not listen to Busta Rhymes. He did not put his hands where his eyes could see. I bet you did not expect that reference, and neither did I. So he ends up finding the pair of the sunglasses when he breaks into this church that they're using right next to the encampment as a way to send out this weak signal, but they must find a way to destroy whatever's going on. Break into this facility, narrow down the signal. Also, Holly ends up getting introduced soon after this, because Piper does the whole, I've come here to chew ass, and I know what it is, but it's funnier the way I say it. So Piper goes on a one-man, trip here and shoots a bunch of people, a bunch of these creatures that aren't very good at defending themselves, to be perfectly honest. I'm kind of amazed they were able to control society so easily. When, all due respect to Roddy Piper and his glorious hair at this time, one guy taking you all down, even if it's Piper, come on. So this one guy, they're speaking into their watches, their gold watches, and says, a white male, 30s, whatever, mama don't like tattletales, and then they can teleport away because they use their magical Rolexes. My shoes cost more than your house. They should have just had flair in this. Piper basically gets Holly to help him, but then it's obvious that Holly is, not a good person. He ends up tumbling out a window and falling down a hill and somehow is all right. He runs into Frank. He's trying to get Frank to put on these sunglasses, but Frank doesn't want to put on the sunglasses because he doesn't like Corey Hart. And they have a fight. And actually, the fight's pretty goddamn good. They rehearsed it for 3 weeks. They basically decided to take it easy if it was the face or the groin, but everything else was fair game. Piper had worked a whole bunch, all over the world, various promotions, various tours, and had taken a whole lot of bumps. And this is nearing his break after WrestleMania 3 until WrestleMania 5. So this is in the interim when he was basically taking a break and just, easing back, being a family man, getting into Hollywood. I did like the belly-to-back suplex out of a sleeper. That was nice. My wrestling, I guess, nerdism or nerd viewing just peaked here because it was kind of cool to see that stuff. Hit a fucking gourd buster at one point. The pickup in the midsection and the dump over, that was actually kind of nice. And basically, some good quips here from Piper. He had talked about it in his biography, his WWE biography, and even other interviews before his passing, that he had quips that he would either hear on radios, on radio broadcasts, in movies, TV shows, or whatever, and he'd write that stuff down. Or he'd come up with stuff, and he'd write it down. So that's where I have come here to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of bubblegum. That is where that came from. And John Carpenter really liked that. And apparently John Carpenter also used actual homeless people as part of the cast and made sure that they were fed well and also gave them paychecks. And that was nice. That was really nice. And I believe Robin Williams did the same thing. When he would be on some movie sets, he would want certain people in the area, a chance to maybe have a chance at a better life. And you know what? That speaks highly of John Carpenter's character. And I kind of got a little bit getting bad reminders of what Piper talked about his growing up, because you got to check out his WWE on A&E biography, talk about the stuff that he went through, and he's talked about in other ones as well, in other interviews. He left home at an early age, was sleeping on the street, had to fight grown men, and had a lot of stuff happen to him, and got into wrestling at a very young age, and wrestling basically got him off the streets and got him where he was for a number of years. And even though he did stick around the ring a little bit too long, he really just fought and clawed and was such an influential character, an influential person in wrestling. Actually, he really wasn't much of a character. He was just an extended version of himself. Check out the story of what he did with Chavo Guerrero Sr. In the Olympic Auditorium. And then ask yourself how the fuck Piper got out of there alive. It has something to do with the national anthem on the bagpipes. I will never understand how he survived that. But he talks about the issues with his dad running away at 13. And this is where I felt, upon reflection, because I haven't seen this movie in a number of years, seeing just how much of Piper's real life growing up came into this role. Him being somebody having to fight and claw and get to where he is and wanting to fight back and just really, really eventually, just kind of be left to his own devices, but realizing that a system needs to be overthrown. So there's weaving Hollywood and weaving real life. And so he gets with the rest of the crew. Holly shows up. Then the sounds of the police show up. And people get shot. John Carpenter basically said, I have a $4 billion budget. I want to shoot some people. I want to have some violence because, I'm an action sci-fi horror filmmaker. So I need to do that. Then they easily break into the facility. There's an old friend of theirs that invites them in. They also, before the compound got broken up with all the resistors, they got new contacts so they don't have to have sunglasses, so it looks even less, they look even, like they fit in a little bit more. And then it looks like it's just down to him, Frank, and Holly. And then Frank gets shot because Holly's with them after a news report room gets shot up. And then Piper gets up there. Holly gets shot. These helicopters are by him. He shoots the power source of this satellite, and that shuts everything down. So now apparently this race cannot rebuild something in time. So now they're totally exposed. Their faces, all that stuff's exposed, and it ends with a girl or a woman all naked and a guy saying, "What's wrong, baby?" But he's all alien-like, and that's where it ends. And Piper basically seemingly dies. I mean, we don't quite see it. We see him get shot, and it seems like he dies. Unfortunately, they would have a very hard time bringing it back, because unfortunately, Piper has been dead for just over 9 years. But yeah, Half-Baked Ideas, I think it takes a little bit too long to get to where it needs to, that it kind of has to rush a few things. But there's definitely enough good to recommend. So They Live still holds up some 36 years later. What do you think of They Live? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retlin. I'll see you soon.